and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha television. You're watching the Breakfast News with me, Frank Pereira. Let's begin as always with the latest headlines. Government will table the land acquisition bill in Lok Sabha today as opposition gears up to launch protest against the bill. Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar to meet a French counterpart today to salvage a deal for the 126 Rafale fighter jets. Swine flu death toll reaches 847 across the country as the virus spreads to 22 states. Over 14,000 people tested positive. RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat kicks up a fresh controversy with his remark against Mother Teresa, claiming her service was meant to convert people. And Ukraine says it will not pull out heavy weapons till rebels stop attacks on its eastern border. Four nations meet again today in Paris to salvage the truce deal. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning: the Modi government plans to introduce the Land Acquisition Amendment Bill of 2015 in the Lok Sabha today. The bill seeks approval of Parliament for changes brought in the law through an ordinance or emergency executive order. However, voices of protest are growing louder against the government's amendments to the Act and the promulgated ordinance. The Congress is trying to stay at the forefront in cornering the NDA government on this issue. The government yesterday used the President's address to the joint session to justify the ordinance issued by them. Here's more.
The right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act has been suitably defined to minimize certain procedural difficulties in acquisition of land inevitably required for critical public projects of infrastructure and for creation of basic amenities like rural housing, schools, hospitals, particularly in remote areas.
The Land Acquisition Ordinance in focus
Honorable members,
in the President's address to the joint session of Parliament on the first day of the budget session. Several political parties have voiced concern on aspects of the ordinance in the past, and the Congress, as principal opposition party, is trying to stay at the forefront of this attack on the government.
Particularly जो लैंड एक्विजिशन बिल है, इस तरह के ऑर्डिनेंस की हिमायत करना, मदद करना, पास करना तो बहुत मुश्किल होगा हमारे लिए।
सबका साथ सबका विकास कहाँ है? अगर सबका साथ होता तो उन्होंने सबका तो साथ लिया, विकास तो इंडस्ट्रीज और कॉर्पोरेट लोगों का कर रहे हैं, किसानों की जमीन लेने के कानून बना रहे हैं और कॉर्पोरेट को बेचने का काम कर रहे हैं।
On its part, the government refutes allegations of the amendments being anti-farmer, insisting that the ordinance has been brought in after detailed discussions with states, including those ruled by the Congress.
सब अध्ययन करने के बाद, संबंधित लोगों से बातचीत करने के बाद हमने आदेश लाया, इसमें कोई किसानी विरोधी कोई कानून प्रावधान नहीं है। ये किसान का हित में है, किसान को 4 गुना ज्यादा उनका जमीन के लिए उनको ये कॉम्पेंसेशन मिलेगा और किसान को कोई नुकसान करने का सवाल ही नहीं है।
The Land Acquisition Ordinance imbroglio is likely to echo large in Parliament in the weeks to come. And not just inside, the Congress is also organizing protests at block and district levels, which will culminate in a dharna at Jantar Mantar on Wednesday, likely to be attended by Party Vice President Rahul Gandhi. The Land Acquisition Bill has been counted as one of the major achievements of the UPA by the Congress Party. And now, when the Congress is sitting on opposition benches, the same bill is being used by them to not only corner the government, but also to project Congress's pro-farmer credentials. Vishal Dahiya, Rajya Sabha TV, Delhi.
Meanwhile, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal will join Anna Hazare at Jantar Mantar today in a protest against the central government's proposed changes in the rules for land acquisition. Social activist and anti-corruption crusader Anna Hazare yesterday began the 2-day protest against the land acquisition ordinance. Anna Hazare has demanded that the centre withdraw the proposed amendments to the Act and the promulgated ordinance. Several farmers' organizations and social activists, including Meera Patkar, joined Anna Hazare's protest. Anna has termed the ordinance anti-farmer. Aam Aadmi Party convener and Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal will join Hazare's agitation at Jantar Mantar today. Kejriwal, along with Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, met the Gandhian last evening.
आजादी के 68 साल के बाद कभी किसानों पर इतना अन्याय नहीं हुआ होगा, उतना अन्याय ये सरकार ने भूमि अधिग्रहण बिल अध्यादेश निकाल कर किया है।
कल हम लोग वहां आएंगे और अरविंद और मैं कल करीब 3 बजे के करीब वहां अन्ना जी के साथ में बैठेंगे, थोड़ी देर धरने पे भी बैठेंगे।
Joining me for a chat to talk about the land acquisition ordinance, land acquisition bill and what's likely to happen during the course of the next few days is the editorial consultant of the DNA, Mr. Parsa Venkateshwar Rao. Parsa, good morning. Thanks for joining me on the program. The land acquisition bill is likely to be moved in or tabled in the Lok Sabha today. You know, the problem really for the government is not going to be in the Lok Sabha, but the problem is going to be in the Rajya Sabha, where the government does not have the numbers. How do you see this issue playing out over the next few days?
I think there will be a lot of political drama over it, with each party stating its position and taking a very hard stance on it, because they feel that this is one popular issue on which to make a comeback. The opposition feels a little marginalized, but now they have got a stick to beat the government with. But I think it's a political confrontation, but no one is willing to look at the details of the ordinance or of the bill, whether it is justified or not. That kind of an informed debate, I think, will be missing in the next few days. What we will hear is a lot of posturing, lot of rhetoric, but no examination of the bill and the need for it. And if somebody opposes the amendments, why do they oppose it? I mean, they must state their principles instead of generalizing that it is pro-business or pro-corporates. Because one of the provisions in the ordinance is to acquire land for rural housing, for schools and hospitals. You know, this is for public purposes, that you don't require consent. I mean, that is the major change that is being made. Now, in the original bill, the consent was mandatory of the community. 80% of, at least 80% consent was required. Now, can you get 80% consent every time you want to acquire land? It's a genuinely a difficult one, because you'll have to get the consent, and even in the best of democratic societies, I don't think you can get that kind of unanimity.
Unanimity, that's true. Indeed.
So there is a need for discussing the whole thing in detail, and we may have to go back to the basic principles of governance, which nobody is willing to, because even before this land acquisition bill had been introduced, throughout there is a provision in the law that for public purposes the government can acquire land,
yes,
but it should pay a reasonable and fair amount of compensation. So you cannot stop. This whole business of consent is, of course, is a very nice, welcome, democratic way, but there are issues that it cannot be used to sort of pose as a hurdle. That is one aspect of it. The second aspect is the government will acquire land for public purposes, but will it hand it over to the private corporations for projects in the name of infrastructure? So those details need to be discussed, but these have to be discussed in a fair manner and in a logical manner. But I think we're not going to get that.
Okay, we're not going to get that. The political posturing that you are speaking about has already begun. The Congress is trying to, you know, take this particular issue to the next level. Do you see any kind of, you know, backdoor talks that are going to take place between the opposition and the government to try and settle this issue once and for all?
I think the BJP would want to take the opposition along, and they will reach out to them, but will they succeed is the problem. And I think one of the reasons they will not succeed is the kind of attitude the BJP showed in the last session, that we have the numbers, we are not going to give an inch to talk to you.
You're going to steamroll you.
Yeah, so now they are making the overtures, and naturally the opposition will sort of play it hard to get and say we will consider. So this is the kind of power play which might be the stuff of politics, but it is not really the stuff of democratic governance, both from the opposition point of view and from the government point of view. Somewhere they may have to give up these rhetorical postures. Unfortunately, the Anna Hazare protest again, I feel, is a very rhetorical thing, because it doesn't add anything to the debate.
You know, as far as ordinances are concerned, the government has been criticized for taking the ordinance route as well. But then the government had its hands tied because the winter session of Parliament was almost a washout. But do you expect the same in this budget session as well, or what do you expect as far as the budget session itself is concerned?
I think budget session, they have to pass a budget and they will have to discuss. They can't duck the debate or the proceedings, because there are some measures to be fulfilled, like the passing of the budget. I think the ordinance route was wrong. I mean, there are no two ways about it. The government should have waited out, because it's just a matter of 2 months, and no great projects were cleared in these 2 months, because, I mean, the argument given was we have to issue the ordinance so that we can clear the projects. I don't think they have done anything great on clearing the projects. I mean, it would have been better had they waited, and that would have won some amount of confidence with the opposition parties, and then they have kept the dialogue on in these 2 months, in the intervening period between the two sessions.
Indeed. All right. We'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Parsa Venkateshwar Rao, for joining us on the program and putting things into perspective for us and sharing with us what's likely to happen as far as the land acquisition bill is concerned. Moving on now, of course, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar will hold talks today with his French counterpart Jean-Yves Le Drian. The two leaders are expected to salvage a deal for 126 Dassault fighter jets that has stalled on the issue of local assembly of the aircraft. During the Bengaluru Air Show last week, Parrikar had hinted that a deal will be struck after March.
French Defence Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian reached India yesterday on an official trip. He will hold talks with his Indian counterpart Manohar Parrikar today. The meeting between the leaders is seen as an attempt to move forward on the faltering Rafale fighter jet deal. Sources said the French minister will focus on firming up the deal ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to France in a couple of months. Earlier, Parrikar had hinted that the deal could be struck after March, which means it could be signed during Modi's visit.
There is no premature indication to CNC. Let them complete their process. I can only assure you that I have told them to do it fast, otherwise I will ensure that they put it fast to me at least in the month of March, if not February.
A final agreement has been held up due to stalemate over a crucial component of the deal. Under the terms of the contract, the winning bidder will supply only 18 of the aircraft directly, and the rest will be manufactured in India by state-owned Hindustan Aeronautics. The Rafale, which is the mainstay of the French Air Force and Navy, was picked in 2012 over rival offers from United States, Europe and Russia. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Going on now, swine flu continues to spread across the nation, pushing up death toll rapidly. The current toll stands at 847 so far, with at least 35 more casualties reported in the last 24 hours. Over 14,000 positive cases have been recorded so far. With the disease spreading at an alarming rate, Health Minister JP Nadda is likely to clarify steps taken by the government today.
The first 2 months of this year has seen more deaths to the H1N1 virus than any previous year. The outbreak, spreading at an alarming rate, has already affected at least 22 states across the country. 35 fresh casualties were reported over the last 24 hours, taking the toll to 847. Gujarat, one of the worst affected states, leads the list of states with most number of casualties at 219 so far. Rajasthan, with 214 deaths, is not far behind either. Over 14,000 people across the country have been infected by the virus so far. Gujarat Speaker and MOS for Health are among those who tested positive. The government has been assuring of adequate supply of swine flu vaccines to control the spread of the outbreak. It also claimed that hospitals are equipped to deal with the crisis. The government placed an order to increase the national stock of diagnostic kits to test for the virus. Authorities are also procuring 10,000 additional masks and 60,000 doses of the antiviral drug Oseltamivir. Health Minister JP Nadda is expected to make a statement in the upper house today clarifying steps taken by the government so far. But people are not leaving anything to chance. In Gujarat, attempts are on to raise awareness among people about swine flu.
स्वाइन फ्लू के बचने के लिए हमने सबको मास्क दिया हुआ है और हम यहाँ बाजू में ही हमारा धर्मनंदन कंपनी का ही दवाखाना है. इसमें कोई भी जरा तकलीफ किसी को है तो हम टेस्ट कराते हैं और आगे इसको सूचना देते हैं कि घर पे जाके सफाई रखने का, भीड़ भाड़ी जगह में नहीं जाने का और हाथ साबुन से बारंबार धोने का.
अलग अलग राज्यों में स्वाइन फ्लू बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रहा है. उसमें हमारी यूथ फॉर गुजरात की टीम ने आज स्टेशन पे जो स्वाइन फ्लू का मास्क आता है उसका वितरण किया है और आगे हमारा और मॉल में और अलग अलग कॉलेजों में करने का विचार है.
In 2009-2010, the H1N1 swine flu pandemic spread from central Mexico to 74 other countries, including India, killing an estimated 284,000 people. More than 2,700 died in India of swine flu between May 2009 and December 2010. Last year, India recorded 218 swine flu-related deaths. But 2015 has already seen the highest number of casualties in the first 2 months itself. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but coming up on the other side, PDP Chief Mehbooba Mufti likely to meet BJP President Amit Shah in Delhi today for talks on government formation in Jammu and Kashmir. Details on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
More autonomy to the Indian Institutes of Information Technology. Bihar to get another central university. And the schools of planning and architecture. Now at par with the likes of IIMs and IITs.
How do you see the things improving from here on?
I think one of the best provisions of the bill is enhanced autonomy.
Watch Law of the Land, 3 bills on higher education. Only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat kicked up a fresh controversy yesterday, claiming conversion was the main objective behind Nobel Peace Laureate Mother Teresa's service. Speaking at a function in Rajasthan's Bharatpur yesterday, Bhagwat said conversion in the name of service devalues the good work done by the mother. His remarks drew sharp reactions from several political parties who have pointed out that the RSS and the BJP ministers have been making such controversial remarks over the past few months. RSS chief's remark comes days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's warning against religious intolerance and conversions.
ऐसी दवाइयाँ नहीं है तो सेवा बहुत अच्छी होगी वहाँ लेकिन पीछे उद्देश्य रहता था कि जो सेवा जिसकी होती है वो कृतज्ञता से ईसाई बन जाए.
देखिए पिछले मेरा मानना है कि पिछले 100 साल में मदर टेरेसा जैसा कोई समाज सेवक या सेविका पैदा नहीं हुआ. न सिर्फ इंडिया में बल्कि कहिए कि एशिया महादेश और पूरे विश्व में. और उनके बारे में इस तरह का कहना, आरोप लगाना कि उसकी आड़ में ये धर्म परिवर्तन, तो ये संघ परिवार के लोग वही हैं जो मदर टेरेसा को बहुत बुरा भला गाली गलौज उनके साथ भी किए थे.
Mother Teresa is not about Christianity only. Mother Teresa is a world figure. Mother Teresa is loved by every Indian. And I'm from Calcutta, so it makes it even worse to hear what he said. But you know, now I'm wondering what the pinstripe suit will say to the khaki shorts about his views on a great person like Mother Teresa. Condemn, condemn, condemn.
Moving on now, PDP Chief Mehbooba Mufti is likely to meet BJP President Amit Shah today in Delhi to give finishing touches to formalization of the alliance. The two are likely to hold talks on government formation in Jammu and Kashmir after 7-week-long negotiations between the two parties. It will be followed by a meeting between PDP patron Mufti Mohammad Saeed with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi later this week. According to sources, the swearing-in ceremony is likely to take place on March 1st. Ruling out possibility of any last-minute hitches, the sources said that the deal has been sealed and the common minimum program would be released after Mufti and Modi meet. Both parties have kept under wraps the details of the CMP, particularly about Article 370 and AFSPA, the two issues over which the two parties have completely opposite views.
बातचीत तो चल रही है, अभी काफी देर से चल रही है, पिछले 2 महीने से चल रही है, बिकॉज ऑफ द peculiar situation and because of the जो एक अलग किस्म का मैंडेट है. दैट्स व्हाई when two sides come together for a formation of a government, बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जिनको सॉर्ट आउट करके एक कॉमन मिनिमम प्रोग्राम बनाने की जरूरत है और उसी पे अभी तक काम चल रहा है. अभी कितना टाइम और लगेगा उसके बारे में भी
Well, let's now take a look at what's lined up for the day today in our special segment, The Day Ahead. Delhi Lieutenant Governor Najib Jung will address the first session of the 6th Legislative Assembly that got underway yesterday. Day 1 saw Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and other MLAs taking oath almost 2 weeks after their resounding victory in the polls. Shadra MLA Ram Nivas Goyal was elected the Speaker, while Shalimar Bagh MLA Bandana Kumari was elected as the Deputy Speaker. Navy Chief Admiral R.K. Dhawan will hold bilateral talks with the 3 service chiefs in Bangladesh today. He is also expected to call on the President and the Prime Minister on the second day of his 4-day visit. Admiral Dhawan aims to consolidate the bilateral defence ties and to explore new avenues for naval cooperation towards achieving comprehensive maritime security in the Bay of Bengal. The Islamabad High Court will hear a petition challenging Zakir Rahman Lakhvi's detention orders under maintenance of public order today. The 2008 Mumbai attack mastermind has challenged his detention under a Public Security Act, saying the government has detained him on illegal grounds. On the 18th of December last year, the trial government had granted bail to Lakhvi, but he was detained the next day. Moving on now, India will support Maldives to gain peace after clashes broke out in the island nation over ex-President Mohammad Nasheed's arrest. Maldives police arrested the former president on Sunday after a court said that he might flee the country to avoid hearings on terrorism charges. The order prompted a conflict between his supporters and authorities. Nasheed had taken refuge in the Indian High Commission in Malé 2 years ago when police tried to arrest him. Last week, Nasheed asked India to intervene in case President Abdullah Yameen, to whom Nasheed lost the last elections in 2013, imposed emergency rule. Well, there were fresh concerns over ceasefire deals collapsing as hostilities continue in southeastern Ukraine. Ukraine's military said it will not pull out heavy troops from the border yet amid continuous fighting. Russian President Vladimir Putin denied Moscow aiding the rebels, saying a war with Ukraine is an unlikely scenario. Here's more.
Concerns grew over the week-long ceasefire in eastern Ukraine as hostilities continued in Mariupol. Ongoing fighting prompted Ukrainian military to say that it could not pull out weapons from the front as long as it is under attack. At least 2 soldiers have been killed and 10 wounded in the fighting. However, in an interview, the Russian president insisted that the war with neighboring Ukraine was unlikely.
Эти минские договоренности, они остались не только документом, который выработан 4 участниками этого минского процесса, имею в виду Украину, Россию, Францию и Германию, они же закреплены в резолюции Организации Совета Безопасности Организации Объединенных Наций и приобрели форму международного правового акта.
Fighting had earlier diminished since Kiev's forces abandoned Debaltseve in defeat last Wednesday. And there were signs of peace with an exchange of around 200 prisoners and an agreement on Sunday to begin pulling back artillery from the front. However, rebels launched an assault on Debaltseve last week. On Monday, pro-Russian rebels celebrated their recent victory in Debaltseve with a festive rally in Donetsk, the main city they control. At the festivities, soldiers received medals in Lenin Square and the crowd cheered and waved Soviet flags. Western countries still hope the troops can be salvaged if the rebels halt. The foreign ministers of France, Germany, Russia and Ukraine will meet today in Paris to try to get the peace deal back on track. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, a New York court has fined the Palestinian Liberation Organization and the Palestinian Authority of $218 million after it held them liable for attacks in Israel 10 years ago. The court found them guilty of providing material support to terrorists. Several Americans were also killed in the offensive. The jury ruled in favor of 10 American families who sought damages relating to the 6 attacks between 2002 and 2004, which killed 33 and injured hundreds. However, PLO and the Palestinian National Authority have said the charges were baseless and that they were disappointed by the ruling. They are likely to appeal against the verdict in a higher court.
Now the PA, the Palestinian Authority, knows that there is a price for sending suicide bombers to our malls, to our cafes, and blowing our buses up. And we will pursue and will make sure that the PA will pay every dollar of this judgment.
Well, it's time now for all the other international news and updates in our World Wrap. Greece will send a list of reforms aimed at securing a bailout extension to EU partners after missing a Monday deadline. The list is likely to include measures to fight tax evasion and trim the civil service. The list must be approved by international creditors to secure a 4-month loan extension. Greece recently agreed an extension to its financial rescue program with Eurozone countries. Claims to have made some progress in the 2-day talks with Iran on its nuclear program and managed to sharpen up some of the tough issues. However, it added that much remained to be done. The negotiators agreed to resume talks next Monday at a venue to be decided. The United States, Russia, China, Britain, France and Germany are seeking to negotiate an agreement with Tehran to address concerns that Iran is seeking nuclear weapons technology, something it denies. Kenya's High Court has thrown out key aspects of a tough new anti-terrorism law after a legal challenge by the opposition. Sections of an anti-terrorism law were deemed unconstitutional by the court. The government said that the law was needed to counter the growing threat posed by militants, but the opposition warned that it violated civil liberties. The development is seen as a partial setback for President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has faced mounting pressure to boost security after a series of Islamist attacks in the country. An ice storm battered southern and western United States on Monday, knocking out power to thousands of homes, causing hundreds of traffic accidents and prompting more than 1,500 flight cancellations. The storm packed high winds and dumped freezing rain, covering highways with sheets of ice. Authorities advised commuters to stay off the roads. The cold is expected to last another day. Moving on to some news from the Cricket World Cup now. Former champions West Indies will take on Zimbabwe in their third match at the World Cup today. After tripping up against Ireland, West Indies picked themselves up with an emphatic win over Pakistan in their last match. But they will have to maintain that level of performance to make sure that there are no more hiccups in their path to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe will look for a better bowling performance today after conceding 146 runs in the last 10 overs against South Africa. Both teams have played 2 matches so far with 1 win and 1 loss each.
Down the pitch, didn't quite get that.
That's it on this edition of the Bulletin. Have a nice day.